Now, reactions to last weekend's gruesome terrorist attacks on more than 20 communities spread across 3 local government areas of Plateau State have been more of anguish and resignation rather than horror. Now, this may owe to the fact that similar and even more horrific attacks have been unleashed on that same area by alleged Fulani invaders. We're now being joined for her thoughts on this latest installment of terror on the Plateau, as well as the people's renewed clamor for ending the recurring violence in the state by Ene Ede, who is a gender advisor to Middle Belt Forum, a socio-cultural and political organization. Good afternoon. Welcome to Newsday, and compliments of the season to you, unfortunately, under such difficult times. But let's get straight into the conversation. Not much to celebrate in Plateau State over the Christmas period. Now, when we look at the statement that was released by the Middle Belt Forum, it is pretty clear what the feeling on the ground is. And the lead feeling is that the government is complicit with what's happening. Can you give us a personal experience and your personal account of what you've witnessed that lends to the fact that there is information on the ground that is not being acted on in order to avert these attacks?
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Arise TV, for bringing this matter to the fore. You talked about no celebration in Plateau. It should be in the whole country and the whole of Africa because of the significance of Nigeria particularly, and the importance of Plateau in the history, economic leadership, and the entirety of history about this country. All of us should be mourning. There is no reason why anybody should exonerate himself or herself. Getting back to your question, one, I would like to be looked at with a bigger eye beyond the advisor or gender to the Middle Belt Forum. For one, I belong to the Women in Security Reference Group, where all organizations, both government on the right side, as well as the duty bearers, the government side, the demand and the supply side, came together to be able to foster a proper integration of women in peace and security, to get to avert the situation we are seeing today. I happen to be an active member. We just had a review meeting after the 4th annual convening. And I also belong to the Women in Mediation, Women in Humanitarian Services. I also belong to, I head the Congress of Northern Nigerian Christian Humanitarian and Welfare Committee. So I'm speaking from personal lived experience. You can see how I'm looking. This is not my normal self. So this is shadow of myself. So I speak from a bigger picture. And one, yes, I was giving birth to a very location of Nigeria before giving to Nigeria and giving to the world. So I'm not a provincial. I'm not known to be a provincial person. I've always spoken objectively, and I've also always spoken on minding where things have happened, just like General T.Y. Danjuma. Even when he does his philanthropy, when he supports women, children, support causes, he's not discriminatory, so I've never been discriminatory. So for all of us, it's a calamity that shouldn't have been allowed to happen in the first instance. I say so because, one, I want you to imagine this. Let us calculate certain costs, first of all. Why it should not be allowed to happen. Not 2, not 3, it's too humongous, and it's an indictment on all of us. And more seriously, when I was coming to this the studio, there are a lot of people, no, you don't need to go. You're a big personality. You speak for Nigeria, you speak for Africa. I say, you see? So that is also the problem, because a lot of people are playing the ostrich. Why? Who is not affected? You now in the studio, myself, I have to leave everything I'm doing to be here. So everybody is affected or impacted on. That's why we should take all this very seriously. Let me get back to the very core issue. One, Plateau, because of these numerous roles I've been playing, and I'd like to add to that, I was the first VAP coordinator, Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, and it has 26 provisions. So what we are seeing happening now is act of violence against the people. And for those of us who are working in this area as humanitarian interventionists, so it's quite very serious matter that the entire country should take seriously, not looking at, oh, the people of the Middle Belt. Some say, why can't they fight back, for God's sake? Is that the solution? That's why, look, like I said, I have taken materials, mobilized materials from around the country before and taken to IDP camps in Benue State, Kaduna State, Plateau State. The questions we should also be asking, because we are adding to the number of those who will be going to the ID, displaced persons, or those who are alive, and those that are injured. For God's sake, have we ever asked questions repeatedly on a sustainable manner that why is it that those who are at the IDP camps in Plateau, in Kaduna State, in Benue, why have they not been resettled as much as their counterparts in the Northeast? I worked in the Northeast as a gender advisor for Search for Common Ground. I had to provide, yes.
It's very obvious that this hits home.
Sorry,
It's very obvious that this hits home for you. And
sorry?
I'm saying that it's very obvious that this hits home for you and your frustration is in place. But of course, we do have a limited amount of time that we can spend with you. Now, based on the numerous positions that you've explained that you occupy, the numerous hats that you wear, would you say that security has been somewhat politicized, ethnicized, and turned into a sectarian issue, as suggested by one of our analysts, Mr. Daishubwali, earlier on? Do you think that's the case based on what you've observed?
It's not a suggestion. That is the truth of the matter. That's why I've been calling women on these various platforms I belong to, that we shouldn't play the ostrich. We shouldn't play along political, ethno-religious lines, because we are bridge builders. We build bridge in marriage, in friendship, in work that we do. So we can't afford to be doing double face like the men have done. Clearly, you can hear from their utterances, from what they say around the corner in dark places. Women must not play this. I say so because if you look at what we have signed as a country, 23 years ago, Women, Peace and Security had been said that, look, women must be involved in security processes. We have not seen that happen. That's why this thing continues to happen. That's why we are calling on women, and we've been planning to say how we can take charge of certain structures and begin to entrench ourselves and begin to bring peace, because we have not been able to see women mediators like other countries have done. 23 years going, we don't have much to show for women, peace and security in terms of what women, the space that should be created for women. You look at all those who are intervening now. For God's sake, we have been campaigning that when you talk about security reforms and the leadership, for once, why don't you make a woman the security advisor, the national security advisor, and see the difference it will bring? And why don't you take, we have seen it before, the Ministry of Defense, you have two men there. What stops you from doing the twinning principle or the zebra, so that you have a man and a woman? Make a woman the Minister of Defense for the first time and see the difference it will bring. I have knowledge to know that there's a limitation when you talk about the tri-services, the Navy, the Army, the Air Force, that there are certain commanding positions that a woman cannot occupy. But these ones that are based on appointment, why can't you do that? And now, look at the monumental trauma the people are going through. Have you ever thought that these children whose parents have been killed and they are just abandoned, they are watching, you think they are small? When they grow and this trauma is in them, have you ever thought about the cost to our country, Nigeria? So these are the areas I like women to get up, to arise today and say, look, we must take care of certain structures and begin to negotiate. Whether they called us to dialogue or not, let us begin to approach Mr. President, please. We would like to have conversation with you. We would like to see the national dialogue we can do on this peace and security and be able to avoid these killings. Why will it always happen when there is a celebration? Are you not saying the people should not celebrate? It's an irony. It's time for celebration. I want you to imagine the number of visitors that have arrived these communities to say, look, we want to go and celebrate with our friends, and they've been cut short. Their blood, how do you tell their relations? How do you want them to look at us as a country? Or how do you want us to look at us as a region in Africa, as a leader?
Absolutely. Very poignant points that you're bringing up there. Now, just to buttress some of the things that you're saying, now, you're proposing a strategy that places women at the center in order to fight terrorism and these insistent. Now, as we're doing so, I'd love to know, as intelligence gathering is being pointed at as one of the primary reasons why some of these attacks are not being averted, how do we incorporate women in these communities to be able to share the intelligence available to them? Especially in Plateau State.
It is very simple. It is when we are not selfish, when we are not politicizing, and when we are not becoming conflict entrepreneurs. Because I worked for Search for Common Ground for 5 years, and I'm quite excited that we're having the first female country director, a young, vibrant woman. I'm glad that she has been my mentee. She's the person at the helm of affairs. This is simple. It's just about for you to honor the dignity of the human person, that this person deserves to exist, and this person deserves space to be able to contribute around the table so that they can sit down and contribute their quota. Within the Plateau, when we were doing the audit recently of what we have done with women, peace and security, within the rigid cultural sector, Plateau has been able to take in a lot of women. So what should be the difficulty with Nigeria saying, okay, we set up this panel, we have 50-50. If we cannot give 70 and 30, because we know where the problem is coming from. And you can see, when the vice president visited yesterday, I heard it on Radio Nigeria, I could hear the voices that were agonizing, they were groaning. It was women, youth, and children. But where were the men? So those who are the conflict entrepreneurs, we must keep their head and create space deliberately for women to be at the table and be able to have conversation. If you look at like I said, I'm not interested in the politics of the conversation. I'm not interested in making this look. I'm not interested in creating space of disunity. I'm a unifier. Because, not just because I was born on October 1st, that has been my stand, and that has been how I'm working. So I'm interested in mobilizing people. The speech has been the statement has been issued by Middlebelt. How do you want to sit down and look at the content of this and begin to respond to them such that it will reunite us better? Because for we women who are the bridge builders, who hate to see a situation where this situation, the killing is quite painful, we will not want a reprisal attack, but what is it that will stop it, that the people can live in peace? I say this because there's nowhere in the Middle Belt, it's not because I'm from there, that you have the kind of food crops, unique food crops that you can't find anywhere. So even for the economy, even for if you look at it, somebody has said, look, if you look at the position of the Middle Belt, it's the belt that holds the North and the South together for the unification of the country. So why won't we pay attention as a group, whether it's the military, the human rights activists, philanthropists? Why must we allow this to be escalating? It shouldn't be allowed. We can stop it. We can. I know the lives that have been taken, you cannot bring them back. As we are doing a lot of humanitarian interventions, what are we doing about trauma therapies? I remember recently Dr. James Iwowari is talking about drugless therapy, resolving trauma. This trauma that is building and is building more and more, and it's enlarged because people have issued a lot of inflammatory conversations and defending here and there and not bringing matter. When lives are involved, why will you want to be defensive and you want to be responding to certain issues in a manner that you want to exonerate yourself? It is about our country, Nigeria. When issue of Israel and Palestine happened, there are a lot of Nigerians that mobilize around Nigeria. So this is your own country. You are playing the ostrich. Women can't afford to play the ostrich. We have all the resources that we can put together, material, technical. We don't even need to go out to bring people. We can make up our mind to be more objective, to be more sincere, to be more honest, and look forward, because like they will say on Radio Nigeria, even if you don't want to give account of what you are doing now, one day your maker will ask you, but why should we wait for that? There's time for us to come around the table, bring all the women around the table, quality women, we have them in their numbers. We don't need to look out. Women did that in Liberia, and there is peace.
Absolutely, and thank you for those points of reference that you've brought to the fore. You did mention trauma therapies. That's indeed very crucial and worthy of mention. But earlier on, you said that you've been urging women to take charge of certain structures. A woman should be made the National Security Advisor, Minister of Defense, and the likes. But I'm wondering what you would like to see in the interim, between now and that time when it might become a reality, to ensure that we don't have a repeat of this.
Look, all these things are not cast on steel. We're talking about the process that makes this a reality. It's the emergency that we are in. What says you cannot change certain positions and bring in women? If you want women from any part of the country that are objective, we have them in their numbers. It's not a long process. And talking about what can we do in the interim to call for a conversation. Speak to the right people. In the Plateau, I know that different people who are intervening, they are speaking to the wrong people. Get different categories of women and speak to them. Have they had conversation with youth? I remember my country director, Chombago. He did so much. He's still alive. Many of the people who brought solutions to other countries of the world, they are still alive. People are here, so you don't need to go too far. The dialogue, the first is dialogue, then national healing. Because if you don't heal, you will not be able to build on nothing. It's when there is healing, there is you acknowledge that you have done wrong. You acknowledge your fault. Then you make a commitment for that there shall be not a repeat again. Then people will be able to live in peace. Until we do this dialogue, start the process of having a dialogue. I'm not saying a conference. Simple dialogue that you bring people together. If you like, you segment it. You have with persons with disability. Have you ever thought about what will be happening like with Dr. Omokaro, who is the DG of the Senior Citizens Center? When things like this are happening, she'll be thinking about her senior citizens. What will be happening with somebody like Yaga Africa? They'll be thinking about their youth. Then what will you be thinking about persons like Grace Jerry, Lois Auta? They'll be thinking about persons with disabilities. So when you do all this, the vulnerable people, you are making them additionally vulnerable. Bring all of them together so that they can be a solution. The solution is not far from us. We don't need to buy people. We don't need to pay. Nigerians are highly patriotic. You can bring these people together. I recall when the biggest trauma therapist I have seen in terms of funding to bring money, General T.Y. Danjuma, when he made a comment, there was so much anger. And the anger was not situated properly. It was just mere sentiment. And you can see that, look at what is happening. Is that not a degeneration? But we can stop this spilling of blood. Women nurture. Women are, you talk about security, you talk about intelligence. There is nobody born of a woman that is wired for natural intelligence of seeing danger coming. The sensor is high there, like women. Bring them properly. Both look at all the people. I like you to go and check your records. The first person who became the coordinator of the women corps, all women corps in the army. A number of us proposed that for a long time. And go and look at the result. Colonel Susan Dibal, retired. Go and see what she did. And we are so grateful to General Buratai for appointing her. The result she has, dealing with terrorists, dealing with kidnapping, managing the female and all-female corps, and everything. Go and see the result. She's not detached, but she's supporting. So there are sufficient women.
Made a great argument for the inclusion of women in the fight against terrorism, and it is duly noted. I'd just like to mention something else that was in the Middle Belt Forum's reaction to these killings, which was the mention of the term ethnic cleansing. Now, what needs to be done? What needs to be addressed in order to heal these tensions between ethnicities that are happening in this region?
You know, I told you earlier that, look, what is the difference now? That you have some IDPs being resettled, being properly using government public money as well as using money from even middle sons and daughters of middle belters, and they are being resettled in their homes and being empowered to start seeing how they can normalize they can live normally. Why is the same not happening here? And because this is happening repeatedly, and it's happening when there's going to be an Eid, and mostly when there's going to be a Christian celebration. That's a lot of people. I'm not an ethnic bigot, but you see, because of the way it has happened and repeatedly too, a lot of people are beginning to be strongly suspicious. You remember late Dr. Obadiah Melafia. If you remember many things he has been saying, and so many others, you see, because I suffer trauma. You know, one thing is that this is what has happened to me. I'm worried. Plateau, my only biological child, was brutally killed last year, just last year. And he lived in Plateau. I want you to imagine what it had triggered in me, the trauma that it has triggered him. I've been going through therapy. For if he was in Jos, by now, only God knows what would have. Even once I just heard it. So the challenge here is that we can deal with this. We can nip it in the bud. There was sufficient intelligence, but the response was the problem. So it's making people to magnify the suspicion and begin, because if you have a little evidence, if you have some evidence to say, like, look, this is a pattern, and it's been for a long time. We women are not, we heal. We don't cause trouble. We don't instigate, but we have a root, and you will feel pain if your root is being targeted particularly. So this is a strong suspicion, and that's why the Middle Belt came out with a lot of information. So how do we respond to that? How do we bring in women? What do you think? How do we start consultation right away, and we don't play politics with this, because it's about the life of people, and we'll be held responsible. And we cannot afford to be depleting our human resource, because the greatest asset you have apart from God is the human beings you have. Other countries are looking for human beings they can't get. They're even inviting our people lottery, using all sorts of sophisticated development tricks to be able to get people. And we have in abundance, so why should we extend our people? This is the concern of many women. Unfortunately, people are afraid because they want public office, they want favor, but they will not tell the truth. But God will hold us accountable. Naturally, if you don't say the truth, your conscience will not let you rest. So if you have the information, you have the knowledge, we should be able to come out to speak, because it is our country. Even if you have multiple citizenships, it's not enough for you to say, okay, you want to go back. There will always be a reference. And who says that migration laws will not change and you'll be sent back home? So this is still our root. And for many of us, we are eternally connected to, even if we are not from Plateau. Plateau has weather that is incomparably unique.
Absolutely.
So why do we want to just use blood? Yes.
We have
so
barely...
for the economy, for the unity...
We have barely a minute and 30 seconds with you, but I'm just wondering what you make of the call by the Kaduna State Governor for northern governors to develop a common strategy and operational plan to tackle insecurity in the region. Would you like to see the regional cooperation intensified in this case?
That it can be done. I've heard people say, oh, our forefathers, jihad, this. Who says that with our exposure and the interaction we're having with other countries, who says we cannot change? It's just about our mentality. We should, enough of this grammar, let's settle down to work. When we sit down, put women at the center of it, and you'll see how there will be progress. Because they are blowing grammar, and the men is merely leadership. I'm not a patriarchal queen, and I don't want men to think that, oh, you're accusing us, because I've been trained not to be adversarial. But the truth is still that because they had their face and they've not been able to deal with it, the level of helplessness we have seen, we are ready to come and help to rescue. Because it's our country, and we have the solution.
Madam Ene Ede, thank you so much for your time. Gender Advisor for the Middle Belt Forum. This has truly been an enriching time that we've spent with you, and we pray that your efforts are fruitful in maintaining peace in Plateau State and, of course, across Nigeria.